Hi again and welcome back. In this video we'll be looking at Hoti clauses, and these will be our first form of subordinate clauses. In Greek, it's unusual for one clause to stand alone in a sentence, and a sentence in Greek is usually referred to as a period. Usually, one main clause is modified by subordinate clauses. They're subordinate in the sense that they're there to help the main clause, to clarify the meaning of the main clause. Subordinate clauses then tell us more about what's happening in the main clause. For example, in English, we could just say, "we went to school." That would be a complete main clause. But we could add a subordinate clause explaining the reason for our going to school. We went to school because we wanted to learn. Or we could just say, "she wanted," without specifying what it is she wanted. Or we could say, "she wanted to know why rain is wet." I guess she was a very curious 3-year-old. How do I know how many clauses there are in my sentence? Simply count the verbs. Generally, each verb of any kind is the core of one clause in Greek. And remember that a Greek verb all on its own can be a full clause. Also, you need to keep an eye out for verbless clauses, because you can have a verbless clause modified by dependent clauses. How do I know which is the main clause and which are subordinate? Well, first of all, we can look for subordinating conjunctions like Hoti. These are conjunctions that connect clauses but make one logically subordinate to the others. In other words, make one clause a logical modification of or modifier of the main clause. Hoti tells us that the following clause is subordinate to what came before in one of a couple of senses, and I'll explain those in just a moment. The other thing we can do is look for infinitive verbs, because infinitive clauses are always subordinate. Hoti is the most common subordinating conjunction, and it can function like the English that. When it's functioning like this, it basically makes the following clause the direct object of the preceding verb. So we can say, "Ha'aner ablepse," the man saw. What did the man see? Well, if we add Hoti, then the following clause is the object of his act of seeing. Ha'aner ablepse Hoti agorae. The man saw that he was in the agora. Hoti can also act like the English conjunction because. In this case, the clause following Hoti is the reason for or cause of the preceding clause. So we could say, "Ha'aner agoradze," the man is shopping. And we can expand on that to give the reason why he's shopping. Ha'aner agoradze, Hoti agorae. The man is shopping because he is in the agora. Notice that the only way we can tell what kind of role the Hoti clause is playing is by looking at context. And sometimes this will be ambiguous. Is this acting like that? Or is this Hoti acting like because? And sometimes we'll have to make an educated guess. Subordinate clauses can also be nested. That is, they can themselves have further subordinate clauses. So, for example, we can say, "Eilthon, Hoti athelesa, arton polesai." There are 3 clauses, and the Hoti clause is subordinate to Eilthon, but the infinitive clause, arton polesai, is subordinate to athelesa. So we're saying as a main clause, "I went." But we want to say more than just that I went. So we have the first level subordinate clause, Hoti Clauses. I went because I wanted, but then we want to explain what it is that we wanted. So we have another subordinate clause, arton polesai. I went because I wanted to buy bread. To sell bread. You can keep learning more about subordinate clauses and subordinating conjunctions in Wallace's Basics of New Testament Syntax, and I've given you the pages there for the sections on clauses and on conjunctions.